here with you where sports meets life on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. And like I said, we are inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios. Cafe Kubal located for you on 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 401 South Salina Street, all in Syracuse, New York. And of course, on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at Sweetheart Corners for the drive-thru location in North Syracuse. In on 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York. So however you're connecting with us, thank you so much for being a part of the broadcast here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Always appreciate you being here. This is the Fantasy Football Power Hour. Not one of, not a, but the Fantasy Football Power Hour. Proudly presented by the amazing team led by Danny Tome at the Wildcat Sports Pub on 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York, where you should be watching the games today and every single week. It's where you should be watching the World Series, as well as the NBA, the NHL, college basketball, college football, the college football playoff, March Madness, and, of course, your NFL. This is NFL Week 8 of the 2022-23 season. I'm happy to be here with you. Folks, as you know, the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, comes to you every Wednesday between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. Eastern Time. But we were traveling this week for Wake Up Call, and so I am bringing it to you this morning on a Sunday because I cannot go a week without giving you fantasy football advice. So we're doing it today on a Sunday morning, but we'll be back at our normal schedule this week on Wednesday. So make sure you check us out on all of our channels this Wednesday on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on YouTube.com, Facebook.com, and MixLR.com, all / Wake Up Call DT. So make sure you're connecting with us, and we appreciate everybody that has so very much. So with that being said, it's time to jump into our fantasy football advice for the entire Week 8 here going forward from Thursday, because obviously we weren't with you on Thursday. I will make some notes here going back to the Thursday game, though, with the Baltimore Ravens and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. An ugly start to the season for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are not looking good by any stretch of the imagination. I'm hoping and praying more than anything for Tom Brady, for Giselle, and for their children that they are safe, sound, healthy, happy, and that they're being looked after well, because this is not a situation that is easy for anybody, and people that have been through divorce know what I'm talking about. So my prayers and my well wishes go to all of you. Lamar Jackson, reflecting back on this game, 238 yards, 27-38, 2 touchdowns, no picks in the game. Tom Brady had more yards, 325. He was 26-44, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Gus Edwards, the guy I told, Old Faithful, as I could call him here, Old Faithful, doing his thing, getting it done. He's somebody that when Lamar Jackson came in as a rookie, he could lean on and trust. And he's that guy that just stays with Baltimore, because it's funny how there's teams that have players that are consistently good, and they're there with them, and they're helpful with them, and they bring all these positives, and they move the ball, but then they go and they try to replace them over and over and over and over again. And you're sitting here going, Gus Edwards has done his job. He's done what he's supposed to do. Why are you making life so difficult for this poor guy? But they keep him on the roster, and then what does he do in this game? He comes in with 1 million people injured, and he has 11 carries for 65 yards. He averages almost 6 yards a carry. On the other side of it, Leonard Fournette had a touchdown, but only 24 yards, 2.7 yards a carry, only carried the ball 9 times. Isaiah Likely was the unlikely top receiver on the Baltimore Ravens. He is someone that comes to you from Coastal Carolina. He was a 4th-round pick, 139 overall in this year's 2022 NFL Draft. And coming out of Coastal Carolina, Isaiah Likely getting himself involved here. Got a touchdown pass, so did Kenyon Drake. Demarcus Robinson, who comes over from the Chiefs, he got involved on 6 catches. Mark Andrews only had 3 catches, 33 yards. He was targeted 5 times in the game. Rashad Bateman, we didn't see much of anything. On the other side, Mike Evans put up some fantasy points for you, 123 yards on 6 catches. Chris Godwin, 75 yards, also on 6 catches. They each caught 6 balls, were each targeted 11 times. Leonard Fournette had 3 catches for 34 yards to go with his 24 yards and 9 carries, so he ended the game with 58 total yards and a rushing touchdown. So there is some fantasy value and some good things to look at for the future here. Isaiah Likely could be the unlikely guy you go out there and pick up in free agency. And beyond that, you can look to the fact that Leonard Fournette was able to put up something here, as well as the Mike Evans numbers, which looked great despite the loss for Tampa. And Chris Godwin, still 6 catches, so PPR, giving you some love there. Watch the Isaiah Likely, Demarcus Robinson pieces, because Devin Duvernay hasn't been the consistent choice, nor has James Prochet out of SMU that I covered while he was with the Mustangs. So, and Mark Andrews had a quiet day, a very quiet day. So we'll see what happens from here, but definitely a lot of things to look at here fantasy-wise. Guys that are showing up that you expect to show up, and guys that could be the most unlikely, like Isaiah Likely. And seeing what he's done is also another good thing to look at. So make sure that you check that out and make sure you pay attention to it, because you never know. Some of these guys are one-week wonders, and other guys are ones that can consistently help your team out, stick around for a while, and bring you some positives. Let's go to this Denver-Jacksonville game, right? I know that your fantasy team already has to be set for this, but I'm just going to make a few notes here. These games have been very difficult when it comes to the Denver Broncos because they haven't done what you expected them to do, right? When I said there's one guy who single-handedly changes the trajectory in fantasy of 4 players at least. I said that going into the season. Who was I talking about? Well, none other than the guy that you know is Mr. Russell Westbrook. I said he's going to, having Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton, when they get a guy like Russell Wilson, wow, they're going to be better, right? Things are going to get better. So I was looking for that to obviously help them out, that move, and that I thought it would hurt the DK Metcalfs and the Tyler Lockett's because he's no longer in Seattle. Well, there hasn't been a lot to write home about in the offense of the Denver Broncos, but people are sitting here blaming Russell Wilson and blaming Nate Hackett, and I'm sitting here looking at the fact of, if this offensive line can't protect the poor man, then what are we really talking about here? You can't throw the ball if you're not standing upright, so you have to think about that. It's the quarterback and the head coach, they get blamed over and over and over again. But the reality of it all is, who's protecting that quarterback? Because that's the issue, right? If your quarterback's getting a ton of protection and not getting it done, it's on the quarterback. If the play calling, like with Syracuse, we can argue that here in the game against Notre Dame, the play calling wasn't that great in my opinion. So then you can go to the coaching staff. But if you can't protect your quarterback, it doesn't matter how good your plays are and how good his arm is, it's not going to happen. And this Cafe Cubal pumpkin spice chai is perfect for me this morning to wake me up and keep me rocking and rolling. Get out to Cafe Cubal at any one of their awesome locations here in Central New York. So worth it. I love my pumpkin spice chai. Ooh, it's good. So, with that being said, Denver and Jacksonville, taking a look at this matchup. I mean, listen, Melvin Gordon, Latavius Murray's going to bring you some value, right? And Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. The hard thing about this is all these guys are flex guys right now because you can't count on anybody offensively in Denver to get the job done. So that's where my frustration lies, is who do you lean on? Because you don't really know. And with the Jaguars, Travis Etienne, he's been getting his job done. Christian Kirk, he's been good for PPR, and so has Zay Jones. Still guys that could be wide receiver 3s for you probably. And Evan Engram, he's done some good things too. Could be a low-end 1, high-end 2 at tight end. Just to make some notes for the future, because I know these games are already, I know that the Jaguars game has already kicked off. So let's get into the rest of the games of this week as I give you my fantasy football advice for NFL Week 8 of the 2022-23 season, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub in the Fantasy Football Power Hour. So let's go to Carolina at Atlanta. The Carolina Panthers at the Atlanta Falcons. And taking a look at this matchup, and if you have any questions, make sure you shoot them over to me. Be happy to answer them, happy to help you out, happy to do whatever we can to get you what you need and get you on your merry way. So looking at this game, Carolina at Atlanta, let's go to Carolina first. PJ Walker, that's my dude, man. That's the guy that I told you about from Temple. I covered him there for multiple seasons. Philip Walker, a.k.a. PJ Walker. You know, PJ, Papa Joe. So PJ Walker, PJs do well on here on the show. PJ, look at it. Carolina defeated the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay is just reeling, and Carolina with PJ Walker, not a bad bet. I would have played him over Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold. Matt Corral, we'll see what he's going to be. He's been injured, but I like PJ Walker, and he did a good job in the XFL as well. So Chuba Hubbard is hurt. Deontay Foreman looks like he's going to be your guy. Spencer Brown and Raheem Blackshear are two guys that could get involved, but this rushing attack is dangerous. Unless you have to deep flex it out or you got a bunch of injuries, you got to pick somebody up. Deontay Foreman might be out there in free agency or waiver wire for you. But I do not like the Carolina backfield. DJ Moore is so inconsistent, which is why I don't like drafting him. He ends the season as a 1,000-yard receiver, but he's still that guy where you're like, where is it coming from, though? Where is it coming from? Where does this receiving, 1,000 yards come from? Because week to week, you're like, where is he? Is he there? Is he in the end zone? Is he even getting targeted? And I said every quarterback has their guys, so remember that. Terrace Marshall Jr., this is another deep flex guy that you could go after. All these guys are waiver wire, free agency, pick up, throw them in the flex, and hope for the best. That's what Carolina is right now. For the Atlanta Falcons, Tyler Algier, I told you the rookie would eventually take over. I thought a lot of rookie running backs and wide receivers could become the number one guys, and he is no different by any stretch of the imagination. I like Tyler Algier in this game. I like Drake London. I like Kyle Pitts. Alameda Zacchaeus, that's another deep flex for you. If you got to flex somebody out, he's a guy that I covered at Virginia when he played for the Cavaliers inside of the ACC. And so, he's someone to look at to try and potentially help you out. The game log now, obviously, with Kyle Pitts out there and Drake London out there, that can change things. But what he's gotten so far, I mean, you look at it, he's gotten a few receptions of, each game, and not too great of numbers, right? His numbers are like 49 yards, 55 yards, 58 yards, 31. So really, he's a guy that you grab and stash in the case of injury, and that did happen to Kyle Pitts and Drake London. God willing, they stay healthy, though, and everybody gets to stay out there. I like London, I like Pitts, I like Algier in this matchup. If you have a question coming in for me, make sure you shoot it over to us and ask us here. We'd be more than happy to answer your questions on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets that thing called life. So however you have your questions coming in, you can send them off to us. We are on Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, Twitter at Call DT, and Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT. You can also go to our direct feeds and write it in the feed, mixlr.com, facebook.com, and youtube.com. All / Wake Up Call DT. We make it easy for you. Every single one of them is the website / Wake Up Call DT. So if you got a question, shoot it over to us. Let us help you do what you need to do to get your team ready and set for this week. Next game that we have coming up here is going to be Chicago at Dallas. Well, Chi-Town's coming off of a win that I didn't think they were going to get, and Dallas looked ugly as sin when they were going up against the Detroit Lions, where they were able to rock it out here. Dak Prescott and the team getting a victory. The Dallas Cowboys, folks, are doing pretty sweet right now. Everybody's focusing on the fact Philadelphia is the only undefeated team left in the NFL, and you should focus on that because it's incredible. But Cowboys are 5-2. No slouch there, right? Wild card team. If Philadelphia keeps rocking and rolling, and so does Dallas. They beat the Lions 24-6. They lost their first game of the season in a low-scoring affair against the Bucs 19-3. Then they went on a 4-game winning streak, lost at the Eagles 26-17, just defeated the Lions. They're back home against the Bears. The Bears. So taking a look at Khalil Herbert and David Montgomery, this matchup, and not even this matchup, but the Chicago Bears, right? They're such an enigma because I didn't think that this was going to be a team that was going to be scoring points. They're on the road at New England in Foxborough, and this is where they decide to score some points. Kind of crazy, right? I don't think a lot of people anticipated and expected this. Justin Fields got involved on the ground. 82 yards, 5.9 yards per carry, and a touchdown. Montgomery had 62 yards, 4.1 yards carry, and a touchdown. Khalil Herbert had 12 Think about this. Chicago is now directing toward the rush, right? So Justin Fields was 13 to 21. Shout out to my number and my Pop Cavino's number showing up together. But we take a look at this. They leaned on the run. 21 passes, 45 carries. Fields had 14 carries. Montgomery had 15. Khalil Herbert had 12. Everybody got involved, and Herbert was 5.2 yards a carry, 62 yards. So he had 62 yards. Montgomery had 62 yards. Fields had 82 yards. So pretty nice. Darnell Mooney, who we've been waiting for to show up, he had 3 catches for 53 yards, targeted 6 times in the game. Cole Kmet did really nothing. And Keel Harry, who went up against his old team that drafted him, of the Patriots, he had 1 catch for 14 yards. So not a lot of great stuff there, but running the ball. This is where you can look to Khalil Herbert as a flex. David Montgomery is a low-end 2, high-end 3 running back. And listen, Justin Fields isn't pretty, but if he can run successfully like this, there's some good things to say about that. So there's that element to it, right? If he can run like he's run, and we know that he can be multiple, then you put him in a situation like this, and there could be some good things that come from it. So Justin Fields, he's still a quarterback too for me. I don't know how and in what world I can call him a QB1, because it's just been fugly, really. And but at the same time, we know that he can run the ball. So if we know that he can run the ball, you gotta give respect where respect is due, right? And so there's something to be said about his ability to run. And the fact that this team may lean on the run, and I can't believe that they haven't leaned on the run prior to now. That this hasn't been like, hey, this is what we're going to do. Like, this is all we think maybe we can get out of this offense, so let's just use our strength and get after it and call it a day. So, Khalil Herbert, like I said, not a bad player to flex out. And there's, David Montgomery, I'm not as high on him. I don't consider him a 1, but he could be a low-end 2, high-end 3 for you out there. On the other side for the Cowboys, Dak Prescott. I mean, has Dak Prescott looked pretty at all times? No. Dak Prescott's just coming back from injury, but we look at Dak over his career, and he hasn't always looked the most beautiful by any stretch of the imagination. So as we look at Dak Prescott, we look at what he can offer in this game, and, listen, he's going up against Chicago first and foremost, so we have to look at that. But looking at him, he was 19 to 25, 1 touchdown, no picks, and he carried the ball 3 times for 0 yards. I mean, he's a low-end 1, high-end 2 at quarterback. But, this week you may have somebody off, so you may have to play him, right? You may have Pat Mahomes or Justin Herbert. Maybe your backup is Dak Prescott. Not a bad week to put him out there, so I can look to that. Tony Pollard, I like Tony Pollard, but I still have him as like a running back 3. CeeDee Lamb, worth the play for you. Dalton Schultz is still hurt here, questionable with a knee injury. God willing, he'll be okay. Michael Gallup, they said they want to get him the ball more. I don't know what the hell's been going on, though. And I kind of just look at this and say to myself, okay, well, you want to get the guy the ball more, so get him the ball more. You know what I mean? Like, he's got to free himself up or create the plays for him. So I'm not really sold on Gallup. I would say CeeDee Lamb, but I don't feel as great about CeeDee Lamb as I would have felt going into the season as the number 1 target with Amari Cooper not being there. So, I mean, statistically, Tony Pollard, he's got 375 yards, not too shabby, 2 touchdowns. Zeke is injured. He has 4 touchdowns and 443 yards. To look at CeeDee Lamb, 2 touchdowns this season through 7 games. So it's hard, right? He's a guy that you kind of feel like, okay, well, what if he blows up and I don't have him out there? But at the same time, it's like he's a flex guy based on his numbers. Zeke Elliott, doubtful to play in this game with an MCL injury, so just make a note of that. Next game we have coming up here is going to be Miami at Detroit Rock City. What's up with your face? So, I don't know why I said any of that, but Miami at Detroit Rock City. And Miami, listen, Tua coming back literally showed what I had been thinking and feeling, and that was, if Tua was still on this team the whole way through, right, if he never got hurt, arguably, this team would have kept on winning, right? They might still be undefeated. And it might not just be the Eagles out there that can claim undefeated status, because when you really look at this thing, I mean, him coming back and how he is with this team, he's just been wonderful. And to win immediately, to come back onto the field and automatically be successful, says a lot about him. It really does. So I do like what we're seeing from Tua, and I think this game would be a good game to put out Tua Tungavaloa, so you can put him out there and give him an opportunity to shine again. I mean, really what it's come down to, and this is a good thing, and this is why I don't understand why people have this, and again, people follow the leader, right? Somebody says something, whether it's based in logic. We've learned this in America. Nothing has to be based in logic for someone to follow you. If you say something and somebody goes, "Oh yeah, I believe it," and someone else says, "Yeah, I believe it," and somebody else says, "Yeah, I believe it," then all of a sudden we got a bunch of people out here believing something that may be not based in any sort of reality, but enough people are going, "Uh-huh." So like, I mean, sometimes that happens, and when that happens, it's I think in the case of Tua, they've been drastically wrong, right? He can't throw the ball, he can't get the ball downfield, he's not successful, he's not going to be able to do anything of merit, yada 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 yada. And yet here we are with Miami being successful with Tua and having, a really good season. And like I said, if he was healthy, imagine where this team may be right now. So credit to Tua and what this team has done overall to really be a successful bunch. So I got a lot of respect for Miami this year because they have gone well above and beyond anything that I had anticipated for them this season. So big ups to Miami for putting in the work. I think Tua is worth the play in this game. Tyreek Hill, yes. Jalen Waddle, yes. I'm not looking at the fact that Miami is gonna be the team to stop you on defense. So we shall see from here, but I do like those guys. Mike Gesicki's kind of a toss-up for me. I'm not feeling like overly great, but, he's got Tua back, so he could be your tight end one this week. I got him as like a mid-range tight end one. Detroit Lions on their side of it. DeAndre Swift, when he's healthy, you got to play him. He's healthy this week, so play him. The receivers, meh. TJ Hockenson, low-end one, high-end two at tight end. I'm not a fan of... Detroit has just been this weird, you talk about an enigma, they've just been a weird team, right? They come into the season, they push Philadelphia to the brink 38-35 in week number 1, and then they score 6 points against Dallas. And you're sitting here like, who the hell are these people? What are they doing? Khalif Raymond got involved a lot, right? Brock Wright, TJ Hockenson had 4 catches for 48 yards, was targeted 5 times. But, it's a bunch of non-household name guys. TJ Hockenson, DeAndre Swift are the ones I feel the best about. But TJ Hockenson consistently being a part of the offensive game, it's like, it's kind of a toss-up. So it's not that I don't think they can get you points, and I feel like you should play Hockenson and Swift. It's just I think like there's more fantasy value on Miami, and I think Detroit's been more confusing than anything. After starting off the season with some promise, it's gotten a little bit... dismal. Not dismal, I want to say quiet. It's gotten a little more quiet. Next game that we have up here is Arizona at Lake Minnetonka, the Minnesota Vikings. So the Arizona Cardinals, talk about a team that, starts the season with high hopes and then kind of makes you go, what the hell's going on? So the Arizona Cardinals here, folks, yeah, they have value. Of course they do. Kyler Murray brings some value to you, like Justin Fields, right? He can run around. The backfield is all types of injured for Arizona. I'd stay away from it. DeAndre Hopkins and Rondale Moore, guys you could put out in a matchup like this. I put DeAndre at a low end 2, and I probably put Rondale Moore at a 3. I like Zach Ertz. When he's healthy, he's good. Trey McBride, the future of Arizona, and the highest drafted tight end in the 2022 NFL Draft. On the other side of it, Kirk Cousins. I don't feel great about Kirk in this game. He is a quarterback, too. If you could play 2 guys, not a bad guy to put out there. If your Pat Mahomes or Justin Herbert is going to be on the bye week and your other guy's Kirk Cousins, okay. I'm not going to tell you to drop him. I just don't really feel good about him in this game. Dalvin Cook, yes. Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen are yeses. But again, these are guys that haven't been as consistent as you want them to be on an offense where Cook and Jefferson should be scoring, if not Thielen too. So it's been quiet, and that quiet has led to frustration, and I understand that. But there is a lot of talent here, and I hope that it works out and starts to do something good soon. Palak said, hey, man, would you start Eno Benjamin, Michael Carter, or Deontay Foreman in a 12-man half-point PPR league? Well, that's a good question. So Michael Carter's playing the Patriots, so I don't feel like that's a bad matchup to put him out there for. Deontay Foreman for Carolina at Atlanta, meh. I would probably say in order, and I don't know if it's Palak or Palak, so I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong. I'm going to say Palak. If I'm wrong, then my apologies. But I do want to. I would say if I had to choose right now, I would say Michael Carter, then Foreman, then Benjamin would be my picks there. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe while we're here. And I appreciate you subscribing. And thank you to everybody that's subscribed to all of our channels and everything we do, including our YouTube channel on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. So make sure you subscribe while you're here. Thank you for the question. And if you have other questions, send them forward. So happy to help as always. Next one we have up here is going to be Las Vegas at New Orleans. The Raiders. So we'll see the Raiders at New Orleans here this week. The Raiders, you talk about kind of, there's always themes when I do the show, and you know, theme words and whatnot pop up a lot. And being an enigma, right? New Orleans quarterback situation, you can't really figure out what the hell it's going to be. And the Raiders are only 2-4, yet they got a lot of talent. So what the hell's going on? Devontae Adams, he's hurt right now, questionable with an illness. So watch on that. Hunter Renfrow is a good PPR, and everybody else is injured in the receiving core in the depth chart I'm looking at, except for Hunter Renfrow and Keelan Cole, who came from the Jaguars, who I covered when he was in Jacksonville. Also, Darren Waller is hurt. So you got all your big guys hurt, potentially not playing or not playing at a full go, except for Hunter Renfrow in the receiving core. So that means they're going to key in on him, but it's also New Orleans defense. So I do like Hunter Renfrow in PPR. I like Josh Jacobs as well in this matchup. I don't like Derek Carr as much because who the hell is he going to throw to? Besides Renfrow and Jacobs, I guess. On the other side of it, Taysom Hill, as long as he is on as tight end, we go through ESPN for all of our leagues. As long as he's up there as a tight end, play the heck out of him, because why the hell not? That man is a jack of all trades, a Swiss Army knife, and if you don't have to put him in your quarterback slot, great for you. Alvin Kamara, potentially on the trading block, which is ridiculous. You got to put him out there. And Chris Olave, I do like Chris Olave, playing up against this Raiders defense. He's a rookie, so he's gonna have a couple come to Jesus moments. We'll see, but Chris Olave, I'd flex him out if I'm going to play him out there in any way, shape, or form. Next one we have up, New England at the Jets, and we just had the question come in about Michael Carter, so let's get into New England at the Jets. Typically, the Jets, when New England was really, really good, and they had that guy called Tom Brady as their quarterback, the Jets, the Miami Dolphins, the Bills, they would steal these games from them when those teams weren't that good. Well, the Jets are good this year. The Jets are 5-2. Patriots are 3-4. And the Patriots have Mac Jones back. So, we'll see. Ramondre Stevenson could be the number one guy now. So, for this situation, which I don't feel great about in the backfield. I mean, Damian Harris, listen, he had 14 touchdowns last year on the ground. Good for him. But he's not the guy that you would anticipate is going to be consistent, right? Nor is Ramondre Stevenson. If you got to put somebody out there this week, though, flex these guys out. Jacoby Myers could be good in PPR. Hunter Henry, I got him as a low-end tight end one. On the other side of it for the Jets, Michael Carter's there, and James Robinson, the guy that got traded. I was in the locker room with him last Sunday, 2 days after my birthday, standing there in the locker room, James Robinson right in front of me. Then he wasn't a Jaguar. Huge mistake for Jacksonville. Huge addition, potentially, for the New York Jets. I love it. I also like Michael Carter, and I covered Michael Carter in college, and my buddy DeAndre Smith, who coached against Jacksonville last week as the Giants running backs coach, also had Michael Carter. So kind of ironic how all of this spins back around together. Pretty cool. James Robinson, set to dress in this game. We'll see how involved he gets. I'd be a little leery of putting him out there. Michael Carter is going to be fighting for his job and fighting for his life. So I'd put Michael Carter out there as well. Low end 2, high end 3. Probably at running back. Somebody to put in a 3 or 4 deep would be Michael Carter, not your 1s or 2s. Garrett Wilson could be another guy for you to come out here. He's become the number one. I also called that going into the season. And I also said that in my prediction of the first round of the draft that they would draft Garrett Wilson, the Jets would. So out of Ohio State. So I do like Garrett Wilson in this game as well. Going with the young guns, which makes sense because that's what I said were the Jets' biggest strengths going into the season. Next game up, we have the battle for the battle for the state of Pennsylvania. Do people in Pittsburgh put regular cheese on their cheesesteaks because Cheese Whiz is what they do in Philadelphia, and that would be considered blasphemy. I don't understand how Cheese Whiz tastes good on a cheesesteak, but when you tell me the home of the cheesesteak has Cheese Whiz, I don't know, to me, that sounds like saying, like, the best ham out there is Spam. But we'll see. I'm not saying that Philly's cheesesteaks are bad. I just don't know if I'd put Cheese Whiz on them. Don't get mad at me, Philadelphia. Back it up a little bit. Like Najee Harris for the Pittsburgh Steelers, people want to throw him on the trading block. They are dramatic about Najee Harris. The man is talented. Let Kenny Pickett get comfortable here. Outside of that, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, low flexes here. Freiermuth, he's a tight end too. If you got to play two of them, not a bad guy to put out there. If you have Travis Kelce off this week and you got to pick up Freiermuth, he can be in free agency and waiver wires for a lot of leagues. I drafted him because I believe in Pat Freiermuth. He's my favorite Steeler besides Miles Jack, so who I covered in Jacksonville. I'm a big fan of the both of them, and I think Freiermuth is good. But do I think Freiermuth is going to be the dominant guy? Probably not from week to week yet. I do think he can turn into that, but he's not a bad guy to put out there. On the other side of it, the undefeated Eagles, Jalen Hurts, yes. Miles Sanders, yes. A.J. Brown, yes. Devontae Smith, yes. Dallas Goedert, yes. That was an easy one, and the easiest one that I've had throughout this entire broadcast of the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. Head out there today, and if you're going to stay at home and watch the games, Takeout Delivery, call 315-487-2222. That's 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat. This is NFL Week 8 Fantasy Football advice, and I am here with you for the 2022-23 season that we are amidst right now. Tennessee at Houston. Let's do this game. The battle of the Houston Oilers became the Tennessee Titans, and then Houston got a team back and became the Texans. Kind of like the Charlotte Hornets with the Charlotte Bobcats, and then the New Orleans Hornets that became the New Orleans Pelicans, and the Charlotte Hornets came back, as well as the Cleveland Browns that became the Baltimore Ravens, and then Cleveland came back. So a lot of weird stuff, a lot of math problems, maybe makes you go cross-eyed. I think a lot of people are like, Dan, but here we are. It does happen. Tennessee is the old Houston Oilers, and Houston is the new Houston. So we'll see. Does Houston still have a problem? I think so. And that problem this week, the Tennessee Titans. Not a bad team. Not a bad team. Houston is 1-4-1. They're not a great team. Tennessee started off slow. They're now 4-2. Malik Willis is going to be your starter this week. I thought we might see him. Well, we're going to see him this week because Ryan Tannehill's out. God willing, he gets back safe and sound. But this could be a really damaging week to Ryan Tannehill's future with Tennessee because Malik Willis is a double threat guy, and I got to see him play for Liberty when he came to the Dome in back-to-back years. Malik Willis in this matchup, because he's playing Houston, I like him. If you got somebody injured, somebody out, somebody you need to pick up, you're going to take a flyer. He's a quarterback too, but he's not a bad bet. If you could play two quarterbacks, wow, that'd be a good 1-2 punch with whoever else you have out there. That's your traditional starter. Derrick Henry, and when I say traditional starter, I mean the guy you put out every week. I'm not saying Malik Willis isn't a traditional starter. Or can't be. I'm saying right now he's not the guy you start in fantasy because, well, he's been a backup. Derrick Henry, yes. Dontrell Hilliard, I like him in this game too because he's playing the crappy Texans defense. I don't like any receiver, though, besides I don't like the receivers on Tennessee right now. On the other side of it, Dameon Pierce is worth the play. Period. Okay, let's move on. It's true. That's how I feel. Next one up here. Washington at Indiana. The Commanders. It's still so weird when I listen to game recaps and they're like, the Commanders, da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, what the hell league is this? Because it just doesn't make sense. I understand why they changed the name, but it takes a long time to get used to it, especially when in the midst of all this you called yourself a football team when you really weren't playing like one. So and here we are with the Washington Commanders at the Indianapolis Colts. Taylor Heineke, get your hands off my Heine. He's out there right now. And Brian Robinson Jr., who I covered in college, and Antonio Gibson, whose team I also covered, the Memphis Grizzlies, my lord, the Memphis Tigers, sorry, thinking about the NBA starting as well. Taking a look at these teams, taking a look at this backfield for Washington, because Antonio Gibson, the concern was that Brian Robinson Jr. was going to come in and take over. Well, let's look at it statistically. Antonio Gibson, 273 yards in 7 games. Brian Robinson's behind him with 153 in just 3 games. And they each have a touchdown. Brian Robinson has 1. Antonio Gibson has 2. If we look in recent history, to what the Washington Commanders have done here. In their last game that they had this past weekend against Green Bay, they beat the Green Bay Packers 23-21. And in that matchup against the Green Bay Packers, to look at that game and the backfield of the Washington Commanders, Brian Robinson had 73 yards on 20 carries. Antonio Gibson had 10 carries for 59 yards. Brian Robinson Jr. caught 2 passes, the 2 that were thrown to him for 13 yards. Antonio Gibson caught 3 of the 4 thrown to him for 18 yards and a touchdown. They're both being utilized. They're playing Indianapolis, so I like them both in this game. Not as high guys, not as your 1s, but maybe your deep 2s or your 3s. I like Brian Robinson Jr. and Antonio Gibson. I like Terry McLaurin because the guy's just friggin' good, whoever the quarterback is. For the Indianapolis Colts, Sam Ehlinger is now your starting quarterback here, as Matt Ryan is currently out. Jonathan Taylor's going to get the workload, but they're going to try and key in on him. Michael Pittman, well, he gets relegated to a flex position because you don't know what Ehlinger is going to bring to the table. As I always repeat to you, because it's true, every quarterback has their guy. Jonathan Taylor's the one, but Washington's going to stack the box, and they got some guys on that Washington defense. So I lean more on the Washington side in this fantasy. And it's not that Jonathan Taylor can't do it, but remember, Jacksonville stopped Jonathan Taylor and when they became, when Michael Pittman wasn't out there. Well, now Michael Pittman's out there, but your quarterback's not out there. So if you're leaning on the running game and you're stacking the box, Washington might be able to stop some things here. Look to Washington's defense and special teams maybe to play them this week on the road. But I like Brian Robinson Jr., Antonio Gibson, and Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin in the last game, 5 catches of the 8 thrown his way, touchdown, and 73 yards to match what Brian Robinson did on the ground. Next game we have up, San Francisco at the Rams. This game was already played in San Francisco, and San Francisco won it. Now, the reigning Super Bowl champions that have looked anything but this season, they're playing up against San Fran again. The Rams are 3-3. San Fran is 3-4. Jimmy G is not that bad. Low end 1, high end 2 quarterback. Christian McCaffrey, I like him in the backfield for this too. Worth putting out in this game. Deebo Samuel, though, he is out for this week with a hamstring injury, which adds value to Brandon Ayuk as well as Ray McLeod and, of course, George Kittle. All guys worth playing, but I would flex out Ayuk or McLeod. If you're in a deep league, you might have to play Ayuk at your second wide receiver. George Kittle, worth putting out there as well because he's got Jimmy G. But I do like Christian McCaffrey in this, and hopefully there'll be enough in the passing game to open up McCaffrey in the rushing attack. Matt Stafford's not a guy you can trust on the ground this season, unfortunately. Darrell Henderson cleared from the injury report, and Cam Akers is out in this game. So, Darrell Henderson, do I trust him against the San Fran defense? No. Cooper Kupp, wow, he has not been what we thought he would be. But Cooper Kupp is going to be, it's hard to say. How do you put like Justin Jefferson? How do you not put him out there for you this week? So I would say to put him out, but I don't really trust anybody else in the receiving core. Cooper Kupp had 8 targets, caught 7 for 80 yards in the most recent game. Allen Robinson had a touchdown. And Allen Robinson, maybe you want to flex him out, put him out there if you got some guys that are off this week from Kansas City or the Chargers, but I don't trust in Allen Robinson from week to week. The Giants at Seattle. This is a 4 o'clock game. Most people would have thought this was a bogus BS game. Ugh, why do I have to watch this garbajosa? However, the Giants are 6-1, and I just got to watch them live. And wow, Jacksonville played like absolute crap. The Giants really didn't beat Jacksonville more than they beat themselves in that game, which is ironic because Jacksonville and the Syracuse Orange, my 2 teams, they seem to look a lot alike, and sometimes for the worst reasons. And Syracuse beat themselves more than Clemson beat them, and Jacksonville beat themselves more than the Giants beat them. And I got to watch both of those games, and I felt the same way about both. The Giants in this one, Saquon Barkley is worth the play. I don't have to tell you that, but I will. Wendell Robinson, flex him out. Slayton, you could do that too, but I would say Wendell if you're going to do anybody in the receiving core to put out there. Saquon's really the guy you put out there. Kenneth Walker III, I told you he'd take over. I'm sad that Rashad Penny is out on injured reserve. God willing, he'll get back safe and sound. But you have, and hopefully soon, you have DK on the injury report. You have Tyler Lockett on the injury report. So they're probably going to stack the box, but Kenneth Walker III is a guy that I'd look to put out there as a flex position guy, and really the only weapon they have right now. Sunday Night Football, everybody's going to be watching this. My man Jimmer Sikowski is going to be out there with his family, Shout out to Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay and our owner, operator, and fearless leader who's going up against ALS and fighting the good fight, 2+ years going up against it. And that man is strong, and I got to see him the last couple days. And I love you, brother. God bless to you. Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers, how do you keep him off the field? Well, things are just not great. But I don't like Aaron in this game. I got him as a low-end 1, high-end 2 because he's playing the Bills' defense. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon worth the play. A.J. Dillon I probably flex out. None of the wide receivers I feel good about. For Buffalo, Josh Allen, yes. Devin Singletary, Stephon Diggs, Dawson Knox, Gabe Davis. Put them all out there. And if you got a deep flex, James Cook, I understand that as well because he's going to have a game at some point. Monday Night Football, Cincinnati at Cleveland. Girl, that's Monday night. Ooh, church. Yes, it is. That's Monday Night Football. Cincinnati at Cleveland. The games that typically have very little defense and both teams scoring in the 30s. And I anticipate that this is going to be a high-scoring game as well. I like Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon. Jamar Chase is on the injury report. He's out with a hip injury, so T. Higgins' value goes up. Tyler Boyd is a flex as well. On the other side for the Cleveland Browns, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are both yeses, and so is Amari Cooper. A lot of fantasy value on Monday night to try and bail you out. If you have any questions for me, send them over ASAP to Facebook at WakeUpCallDT, Twitter at CallDT, and Instagram at WakeUpCall_DT, as well as to YouTube.com and Facebook.com, both /WakeUpCallDT. Reply directly to this video. Thank you to the Wildcat Sports Pub. Thank you to you. I'll see you Monday morning, God willing. This has been the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. NFL Week 8 coverage for the 2022-23 season. And right down the road from the Wildcat, Witty Wicks, which I always use to smell up my studio. Oh, so nice. Wonder how I stay calm when I'm going through all this fantasy and what keeps me energized and in good spirits. Well, that's God above all and my positive personality. And it also doesn't hurt to have your studio smell really, really good when you open the door and you... So, thank you to our Ottoman Cuse candle, which you can get while supplies last at Witty Wicks, 190 Township Boulevard in Camillus, New York, in Township 5. And by the way, folks, if you're listening anywhere all over the world and all over the country, you can have Witty Wicks ship these candles and so much more to you by going to wittywicks.com. Thank you to the Wildcat Sports Pub. Head out there to watch the games today and all throughout the week, 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. And for takeout and delivery, 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat. I'll talk with you soon. For now, this is the Fantasy Football Power Hour and Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. God bless. No stress. Do your best.